Hello and welcome to the Paris FinTech Forum Communities Programme. I'm Elliot Gotkin. I'm a journalist and with Laurent Nisri, co-host of this exclusive video interview series produced with the support of Solaris Bank, Rise and BPI France. Now, from AML to KYC to reporting, financial institutions have to grapple with an alphabet soup of regulations. And as they've become more complex, the need for regtechs such as Suede Labs has only grown. The company's co-founder and CEO is Diana Paredes, and she joins me now. Great to see you, Diana.
Great to see you as well. Thank you very much for having me. Thrilled to be able to support the Paris FinTech Forum.
And how's it going over there?
It's going good. We're opening up, so we're quite excited that things are starting to look a bit more like normal, and looking forward to events and things like that starting to happen again around the world. So yeah, quite excited.
Right. And I said that Suede Labs is a regtech. Obviously, there is that could be all manner of things. Perhaps you can just explain to us briefly what it is that Suede Labs actually does.
Yes, of course. So we have been around for the past 5 years, 6 years almost now. And what we set out to do was basically to be able to deal with large amounts of data. So we have the most performant system in the market when it comes to things like regulatory reporting, analytics, calculations, and effectively normalize that data for the purposes of a regulatory output. And we have been quite focused, I guess, on the piece around, things like prudential regulation, things around, like broadly reporting as well, analytics. There is a lot of work that we have done as well in terms of like data standards and just standardizations for the industry of regulatory rules overall. Our work has taken us everywhere around the world. So we actually have offices in many different locations now, even though our headquarters are in London, and this is where we started as well. But we have offices in Singapore and in New York, in France as well, in Spain, and continue growing. And what has been very exciting and interesting for us is that we have actually had a lot of, room to bring our thought leadership to the rest of the industry. So whether it's been through our customers or work we have been doing with regulators or the voice we have had through, for example, organizations that we work with like the World Economic Forum, that we have been technology pioneers for and now global innovators for, it has meant that we have really grown to what I like to say, zero to Davos. So from being a very small company to basically going to places and having forums, I guess, of conversations such as Davos and regulatory forums, which have been quite important for our piece of work.
And how's business been? Has it been a good time to be a regtech?
I mean, the pandemic has been a great time to be a regtech. I think that the reality of needing to automate and to be more digital has become much more pressing than before for a lot of organizations. And I always think of regtech. The traditional definition is always, around new technology being used for regulatory problems, which is the one that comes from the regulators, and the FCA coined that term, at the beginning. Originally, I guess, relative to the regtech scene. But what I always think, when it comes to regtech is very much, 101 enterprise software innovation for the financial industry, because regulatory software is really about enterprise software. And, enterprise software in financial services has fundamentally, a lot of flaws. It's still very driven by professional services, although that's starting to change quite a lot. And I think the pandemic is really accelerating the process of adoption of more automation and removing manual intervention. So regtech is very much about that. Right. So I think that the pandemic has been very positive from that perspective. Regtech businesses have overall done very well relative to the rest of the fintech sector.
Can you give us an indication sorry, Dana, can you give us an indication of how well you've been doing, perhaps in terms of revenues, in terms of growth?
Yeah, so our growth, just as a team, we've basically tripled the size of our team during the pandemic. So in the past year, we've hired copiously with people that I've never met, which is obviously not how it has been over the past few years. We've opened these international offices. That's also happened in the past year. Revenue has grown, proportional to the demand, I guess, that we have been seeing in terms of our clients, and having not just new clients, but also a lot of upselling opportunities, because a lot of the clients that were existing with us, existing customers with us, suddenly were like, well, this is probably some of the software that works the best with an organization during the pandemic. So let's actually do more with Suede. So it's been quite exciting.
Sorry, I was going to say, Diana, just because I want to kind of move on to ask you more questions in the short time that we've got. I did notice that your website is quite Spartan. Normally, fintechs, regtechs, there's a lot of interesting things going on the website, a lot of information. Yours doesn't seem to have a lot. Is that kind of like by design, I assume? Is it part of your mystique? What's the...
So maybe you didn't click in the right places. There's actually loads of information. If you actually go through, so there's lots of logos at the bottom of the different people that we work with and awards and things that we do. There's a lot of content in the journals in terms of articles, white papers that the team has been writing. As we have also grown the team in the past year, there's been a lot more publications as well. So I'm not sure. Where have you been clicking, Elliot?
I'll make sure I'll click on the right one. I thought it was something, just giving you this air of mystery and kind of something making more appealing.
There are some things that we like to remain mysterious about, but we are quite vocal, I guess, in terms of the work that we do around standards, the work we do with our customers, the work that we do where we represent the evolution that we see possible thanks to our technology when it comes to automating the regulation into code. So that's all out there. The details obviously are things that are part of our IP, so we will be careful around that. But overall, we're quite. I think we're out there.
All right. Well, let's move on from that. You, if I'm correct, and please correct me if I'm wrong, you studied civil and environmental engineering, I believe, and then went to work in investment banking. Do the two kind of have a lot of synergies, or?
They did. So, this was the time, this was just before the financial crisis. So this was the time where obviously the financial services were booming and they were looking for a lot of people with technical backgrounds. And so I guess that, I was studying at Imperial College for civil and environmental engineering. I was finishing my master's there. And at the time, banks were literally, coming out of the city and Canary Wharf to find the best graduates of the top universities in the UK, as they were doing around the world. And so my co-founder, for example, is a major in physics and mathematics. So you'd be surprised actually from that generation how many people are not really financial people or bankers, who are actually more scientists or engineers by background, which I think has served us well in our careers, because obviously it gave us a very good understanding of the technological problems that would be coming our way. So yeah.
And you mentioned the financial crisis there, Diana. You were kind of really in the thick of things when it was going on. What was it that made you want to go, if you like, from poacher to gamekeeper and then set up your own regtech fintech?
So, when the crisis hit, I was in Merrill Lynch. I was on the trading floor, and in some of my presentations, that's actually something that I've mentioned, because starting my own business in this particular topic has been a very emotional journey. Because when I started in the industry, I'm a banker through and through, as in I love the trading floor. I really enjoyed, my whole time on the trading floor, from internship to whenever I decided to leave. But it really shocked me what happened in 2008. I think it was something I just could not understand how it had gotten to that point, to that lack of transparency, lack of understanding as to what was in the bank's balance sheets. I was in Merrill Lynch, which obviously was like, in the storm, in the eye of the storm. I remember so many people that were senior that I looked up to, just getting fired quite suddenly. And so it had quite an impact in terms of how I viewed myself as a banker, right? In the sense that I probably started my career thinking I'll be doing this, until I die, to thinking, well, if this is how they treat people, maybe I need to think about how I make the most of this career, right? And this kind of like you only live once kind of approach. And so I took more risk. I started changing. I did different jobs in the industry. So I also moved from, foreign exchange to liability driven investments to then structuring. And I think that the reality of trying these different positions and learning so much also made me realize when it was time to go. And I think that, there is a certain point where if in your career you feel that maybe you're not learning or you're not growing as much as you want, and that there are other options out there that you should be looking at, it's basically things you should really consider and probably take a jump if it makes sense for you. And for me, that's where it came to that point. It just made sense that with everything that I had learned and everything that I had under my umbrella in terms of understanding about the financial industry, that the problematic I really wanted to be solving was more, around regulatory software, around automation, or in trying to really prevent another financial crisis through technology. Because I realized that a lot of the issues that even turned up and surfaced out during the crisis were due to lack of availability of data, lack of transparency. And the problem that we're trying to solve is not regulation. We're trying to solve a problematic of just better technology to access the information that the regulators are after. And that's where we're coming from.
Okay, well, Diana, please don't go away, because we're going to take a very quick break, after which we are going to continue our conversation with Suede Labs co-founder and CEO, Diana Paredes. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. And now, Diana, I've got a few more questions for you, so let's talk a little bit more in detail about RegTech and the industry as a whole. We've had governments and regulators preoccupied by the pandemic. Did you get the sense that they eased off over the last 12 months? And now the worst, we hope, may be behind us in the UK and Europe. Are you expecting a flurry of regulations that are going to keep RegTechs like you busy?
So the answer is yes and no, right? So I think that the regulators eased off temporarily for certain things that they thought were not as urgent, but they replaced it with other things. And so what you found is a lot more ad hoc interrogation, right, of financial services and of the industry, and trying to understand how easy it was for the financial industry to give certain answers at a short notice. And so I think what you will have found is that people found themselves with more time on the traditional submissions and on the traditional things that they would have to revert back to regulators, and maybe more leniency from that perspective, but with a lot less time and a lot more focus on, well, if this happened to your balance sheet now, then what is actually the impact on your company, given that they had to be planning for exceptional circumstances given the pandemic. So I am expecting post-pandemic for this kind of like ad hoc interrogation to continue, because I think it's kind of here to stay. So it means actually more regulation and more requests that maybe are surprise requests rather than just the traditional pieces, and also for the traditional pieces of submission and of requirements from the regulators to pick back up. So I think that it's going to be the best of all worlds when it comes to to RegTechs and the demand on the industry. So yeah.
Well, hopefully everyone will be so happy that the pandemic's behind them that they'll be more than happy to take a few extra regulations on the chin. But I want to ask you,
let's see about that.
In April, the Bank of England called on RegTechs to press their own case for greater adoption of cost-saving ways to automate things like compliance and to spot money laundering, rather than expecting it to do so. Does the onus need to be more on RegTechs? Should they be more proactive in getting these technologies to be more broadly adopted?
So effectively, where the RegTechs should be more proactive in explaining the cost savings that they generate?
Well, this was the Bank of England just calling on RegTechs to kind of press their case for greater adoption of their technology. So I'm just wondering if you feel, as someone that's in this industry, that RegTechs, perhaps you're already being incredibly proactive, but perhaps that there needs to be more of a kind of cross-industry effort to try to get these technologies adopted, not just for your own benefits, but obviously for the benefits of the financial industry as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question. I think that the problematic around regtech, like I was saying, is that you are really innovating in a very slow moving environment, which is enterprise software, right? And so the reality when it comes to cost savings and the opportunities for automation, they're huge. They're really incomparable compared to traditional approaches of enterprise software, which require a lot of manual intervention, very prone to errors, a lot of consulting, that kind of stuff. So I think that if you're innovating in enterprise software and you're basically selling your product, it's kind of your job in any case to sell it, right? And so it's not. I can't imagine of anyone that's an entrepreneur or an innovator or has a company that's in the space where they're doing something new that would not be selling their product or would not be selling their benefits. The opportunities, I guess, of cross collaboration between larger financial institutions and regtechs and maybe even some large consultancies or large enterprise software companies and the regtechs and on the smaller scale are very real. How realistic it is for that to happen is a bit different, and maybe there is a place for the regulators there to really operate as a platform that allows for this kind of cross-pollination, cross-collaboration to happen better. But I think that, and this is something that I've always raised, is that, it would be a match made in heaven, right, for innovators to work with, consultants and large enterprise software vendors and all of that kind of stuff, because we're basically the opportunity to change the industry. But it obviously displaces a lot of the status quo, and that's not always welcome. So maybe the regulators can almost be like a platform of protection for IP on innovation on one side, and then with the large financial institutions or large institutions who are really motivated to work together to actually do it.
Right. Well, if there's any
how realistic that is, let's see. But
if there's any regulators watching, then that's certainly going to be food for thought for them. But look, Dana, I'm so sorry, but we've actually run out of time. But I really want to thank you for taking the time to speak to us. That was Diana Paredes, co-founder and CEO of Suede Labs. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure, and I hope everyone remains safe and that we all see each other very soon.
Likewise, thank you. I will actually be back next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. So we hope that everyone watching will join us again then. In the meantime, you can keep up to date with all the exclusive interviews and content from the Paris FinTech Forum Communities Program via www.parisfintechforum.com. That's it from me. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.